Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 842 for the 24th of November 2024. Richard Saunders coming to you from the Skeptic Zone studios. I've snuck back here quickly as the Australian Skeptics National Convention, Skepticon XL, is currently going. It's sort of in progress. And we've already had the first day with the awards dinner in the evening. And so far it's been a great success. Coming up on this week's episode, I chat to our special guest, Ben Radford, as Ben and I strolled through part of Sydney, and Ben talks about his first trip to Australia and some of his adventures in Squaring the Strange podcast. Then we have the highlights of the awards the Australian Skeptics gave last night at their annual dinner, our annual dinner, I guess you would say. The Ben Spoon Awards, some Merit Awards, and another award you'll find out about tucked in there somewhere. Following that, it's Maynard's Spooky Action. Maynard chats to Dr Liam Brierley, a researcher of statistics from Glasgow, the University of Glasgow. He was visiting Australia and spoke at Skeptics in the Pub. And then we have the Australian Skeptics Newsletter, written by Tim Mendham and read by Adrienne Hill. And to round off this week's episode, the TROVE Archive looks at the Alien Autopsy of 1995, when some in the press were clamouring for it to be the real deal. A very quick introduction this week because we've got a very full show, a little bit extended, I think. So without any more waffle from me, I'm going to run downstairs and have a waffle. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. It's a beautiful spring day here in Sydney. I'm with Ben Radford. Hello, Ben.
Hello there, Richard.
Welcome to Sydney.
Thank you. This is one of the places where, as a young boy, I would look at a map of Australia. It seemed very, very far away, and it is, mind you.
It is.
But I'd always sort of looked at it and said, what could Sydney be like? And suddenly I'm here, and the weather is beautiful, and the people are great, and there's coffee everywhere, and you're here, and Tim's here, and this is fantastic.
We are having a really interesting day. We've done a few touristy things, we have to admit, and at the moment we're in a part of Sydney called Darling Harbour, which is convention centres and harbour side, and a giant children's playground here.
Yes, this is I love public art, and so I'm really enjoying, or art, I guess would be. And yeah, it's lovely. It's nice just seeing everyone out, and it's nice weather, and this is great.
So what we're going to do now is we're walking around Darling Harbour to one of the ferry wharves, and we're going to get a ferry out into the harbour past the under the harbour bridge, in fact, and to Circular Quay, which is the main ferry port in Sydney. But you've just been on a big adventure because you arrived in Sydney a week or so ago, but then you were straight off to Adelaide?
Yes.
And then you took the famous GAN train from Adelaide to Darwin. What was that like?
It was pretty remarkable. It's I'd done a few train journeys over the years, but nothing in recent years. And there's something about trains. They're so classic, and especially the GAN route. Its symbol is a camel, because that was, they brought in camels that's what they had to do to survey the land. So it was really fascinating seeing if nothing else, the change in the terrain going from Adelaide, which is actually kind of similar to where I live in New Mexico, sort of low scrub desert things, and then by the time you get to Darwin, it's this sort of subtropical, humid. It was just remarkable.
It is remarkable. Now, You're here, of course, to speak at the convention, and in fact, by the time this show goes out, the convention will be half over, because this show is going out on the weekend of the convention, which is tomorrow. It starts. Holy mackerel! Tomorrow. It's a Friday, as we're walking along, and what a view! This part of Sydney. It's quite spectacular, isn't it?
It is. It's just neat. You know, as you know, I live in the desert, so all this water is unusual. And I haven't done a harbor cruise in ages, so I'm really looking forward to this. This is a treat.
Well, it's certainly great to have you in Australia at long last, Ben. And your adventure's only halfway over, because after this convention, then you're going on the Indian Pacific.
I am. Once I got the great news that I was being invited to come speak, of course I was delighted to see you in Sydney in Australia, and I figured, well, if I'm gonna come all this way, I better see as much of the country as I can.
And you certainly are.
quite a bit. And it's, of course, you could spend months and months seeing it, but I figured, well, why don't I go ahead and try to do the two classic train journeys? So I'll be going from here in Sydney to Perth in about a week, and seeing it sort of east-west.
What an adventure. Now, Ben, if people want to hear more of you at Squaring the Strange, the fabulous podcast you do with our good friend Celestia Ward, of course, and our other good friend who I haven't seen in a long time, Pascal.
Yeah, Pascal, he's been busy with things, as he often is, but we're still putting out the podcast, and Celestia's been doing her I have to give nothing but credit to her. She's been doing, of course, a co-host and also the editing and everything else. So she's just a delight, and we're still proudly in our 5th year, I believe. So
wow. Check it out, folks. Squaring the Strange. It's one of the classic skeptical podcasts. Anyway, here we are, walking along. It's people are dotted here and there. It's a sunny day, and soon we'll be on the harbour. But anyway, for now, Ben Radford, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great first day. Looking forward to tomorrow. Everybody eat, drink and be merry. We are now holding the formal part of the evening, and I would actually like to acknowledge our sponsor and patron, Mr. Dick Smith. Thank you, Dick, for coming and being such a great supporter. I'm Jessie, the Senior current President of Australian Skeptics, and we are now going to have our annual awards. And I will hand you over for the serious awards, the good awards, to our Executive Officer and Editor of our wonderful magazine, which you should all subscribe to, Mr. Tim Mendham.
Thank you, Mother. Yeah. Okay, I've got some merit awards. Okay, we've got a range of awards that we give out every year. We don't give every award every year. It really has to be sort of earned, if you like. But yeah, we've got 2 awards that I'm talking about, which are positive awards. One is the Thornett Award for the promotion of reason. This is named after Fred Thornett, who was a Tasmanian committee member up until he died about 15 years ago, I think it was, so pretty close to it, thereabouts. And anyway, so we basically give this award to a member of the public, not necessarily a skeptic, who has done good work in promoting critical thinking, reason, science, whatever. So it's basically an award out there to the public. Now, apart from the certificate they get, there's also a $2,000 cash prize. And we had a great recommendation from Dr. Paulie, actually in the Gold Coast, who recommended Dr. Nikki Milne, who's of Bond University. Now, she and her crew have been studying spinal manipulation. And I know, and especially as in the recent issues with spinal manipulation by chiropractics, which after an infamous film in which showing an infant being back cracked, horrible, they banned it, so the chiropractic board unbanned it, and because of Nikki Milne's work, it's been rebanned. So yeah, she did a great job. So I've spoken to her recently. She's thrilled, and so that's the Thornett Award goes to her. We also have the Barry Williams Award, named after a previous president and executive officer of Australian Skeptics, Barry Williams, who was a self-professed media tart. He loved talking to the media. Any opportunity he'd go, he'd sort of speak to the media. So this is the Barry Williams Award, which we call the Wallaby, because that was his nickname. He used Jim R. Wallaby when he was writing pompous pieces for the Skeptic. Sorry, even more pompous pieces for the Skeptic. And so this is the Wallaby Award. And we chose, instead, one article written by a Melbourne-based journalist for The Age, who wrote a piece about an area which a lot of people don't cover. There's tongue tie, which is about when the baby's tongue is attached to the base of the mouth, or the base of the jaw, and it has to be cut to allow the tongue to be, and there's a lot of pseudoscience in it. There's a lot of horrible things in it. So the person who wrote this story did a great job interviewing different people's expertise and everything. And it's a lady named Henrietta Cook from The Age. So she gets our Barry Williams Award, and that's also has a $2,000 prize. So any journalist knows $2,000 is pretty good. So that's our two merit awards, and we move on to the unmerited awards. The Ben Spoon.
I've had many introductions in my time, that wasn't one of them. Here it is, folks, the Ben Spoon. Thank you very much. My name is Richard Saunders. I am the Chief Investigator for Australian Skeptics. It's wonderful to be here back in Sydney. A couple of weeks ago I was in Las Vegas with Mr. Ben Radford, everybody in person here. And we were in Saigon, the big meeting in Las Vegas, so that was a lot of fun. And this is an interesting time for me because exactly 20 years ago we had the convention in the same theatre. And I was here with my good friend Dr. Steve Roberts, a long-time skeptic from Melbourne. So great to see you here again, Steve. But let's get to why I'm up here anyway. No, that's another reason. I'll see you later. It's okay. The Ben Spoon Award, which you've all just seen. This year brought us an unusually long list for the Ben Spoon Award, ranging, it was good, people were writing in, ranging from UFO, UAP, flying saucer, aliens, interdimensional beings are here any day now, the truth will come out. Apparently they're now living in ocean bases. Okay, so we didn't know that. To a man who tunes into dead people via the radio. True. Static, yes. To a former ABC journalist who supports COVID conspiracy theories, not very good. To a Victorian politician misusing statistics to claim the COVID-19 vaccine caused significant number of deaths, not very good. And there are more, which of course you can view at skeptics.com.au. Dishonourable mentions go to Channel 7. Had three nominations, including for horoscopes in the evening news, for promoting new medical wonder red light lasers to combat autism, unbelievable, and for promoting Atmospheric, a product that will create rain in drought-affected areas. The old rain-making machines back again. A dishonourable mention goes to Elle Macpherson's naturopath. Okay, and this year's recipient, very tactfully put, I think, the Western Australian branch of the Cancer Council for the promotion of pseudoscience, in this case offering therapies based on the pseudosciences of Reiki and reflexology. And we stress this is the Western Australian branch, not the national organisation or other branches. Australian skeptics are used to fringe organisations promoting pseudoscientific quackery. Oh boy, are we ever. It goes with the territory. But when a significant and reputable medical body that deals with vulnerable patients suffering one of the most dire medical conditions does the same, it is not only a concern, it is also dangerous.
Thank you, Tim and Richard. Okay. All right. I have one more thing to do. Very important. So we have decided, the Australian Skeptics, we have decided to give a very special award tonight. And forgive me for being a bit coy, but in an attempt to achieve some element of surprise, I will announce the award and then explain why, because if I go through everything this person has done, you'll know immediately who it is. So we've only ever given this award twice. Once to the late James Randi, and once to our former executive officer and editor, the late Barry Williams. So, I won't beat around the bush. I am both delighted and honoured to present an Australian Skeptics Lifetime Achievement Award to someone who needs no introduction, Richard Saunders.
Well, a quick word.
Very quick.
Damn, I want to resign the committee now. I was just, people have asked me today what's my next big project. I don't know what it is, and I sort of figure I've got one more in me. The Great Australian Psychic Prediction Project, digitising the magazine, doing the documentaries, the Vaccination Chronicles, for example, the Water Dividing documentaries. Being part of James Randi. Oh, sorry, I'll stop looking at this a little more. I'll do something before I take my final bow. I just don't know where it is yet, but this is very touching. To be in the same company as Barry Williams and James Randi, and the Flying Pig couldn't be better. I'm wearing the Flying Pig lapel now from James Randi. And, all right. Okay, so you've probably seen the trick with a pen. If you've got a pen, you can do it now. You can just get a pen and wiggle it like that. See how it looks like it's...
Yes.
Right? But that's just an optical illusion. What James Randi taught me... Yes, good one, yeah. What James Randi taught me is you can do the same with just a teaspoon. You hold it like that, and you give it a little wiggle. It does look like, and people swear that that's actually rubbery and bendy. You see that?
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
And people can't get over that it's just an optical illusion because it's magic. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Adrienne Hill from Skookum Studios, coming to you from Calgary, Canada, and I'm here to read the highlights from the Australian Skeptics Newsletter. This is newsletter number 210. And don't forget, you can sign up to this newsletter at skeptics.com.au and get the full report, complete with all the links, every other week, right into your inbox. But let's see what Tim Mendham has for us this week. Hi all, says Tim. The US presidential election is over, Those psychics who picked the winner in a 2-horse race are gloating, and those who didn't are ignoring the question. Meanwhile, by the time you hear this, Skepticon XL, or 40, will be in full swing. Read on, Tim. Okay, Tim, I'll do just that. It's the worst year on record for whooping cough. Whooping cough cases across Australia have passed 40,000 in a year for the first time since recording began more than 30 years ago. Well, that's sad news. The Shonky Award. Choice magazine has announced its much-anticipated winners of this year's Shonky Awards, recognizing the worst of the worst products and services from the past year. One of the winners is so-called grounding socks, which, for $40, claim to alleviate pain, reverse the effects of aging, ooh, I need those, improve sleep, and literally ground you via a socket of an electrical outlet. Choice asks, quote, "Is there enough evidence to say these socks are shonky? We say yes," end quote. Paranormal beliefs linked with stress. Researchers at Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK set out to determine whether paranormal beliefs, be it religion, witchcraft, or New Age spirituality, are an indicator of how well people manage stress. The answer is yes and no. Some do, some don't. Traditional paranormal belief tended to show elevated distress and reduced feelings, while belief in New Age philosophy, which in any case is described as feel-good, was not statistically linked to any tendencies regarding distress or coping. The full paper is available in the link in the newsletter. Going goop. Signs of trouble in Gwyneth Paltrow's empire. Layoffs, stores closing due to lack of interest, employees complaining of low salaries, poor leadership, and favoritism among the higher ranks. And the pandemic didn't help. Is the fantasy finished? More UFO testimony to the U.S. Congress. To some, the most recent revelations to politicians were highly anticipated. To others, it was a big letdown. And others are calling for a similar briefing for politicians across the pond. King Charles should demand it, says a documentary maker. Crop circles in Queensland. This is a decent couple of episodes of the ABC podcast Expanse, looking at a crop circle in Tully, Queensland, that apparently inspired the two jokers in Wiltshire to start their own series of circles. These two episodes look as much at the people involved and the impact of the search for truth as it is aliens and serial offenders. And serial is spelled Cereal. Funny, Tim. Items of interest. Travel tip number 1. Christchurch's haunted places. This is a video discussion of the book Haunted South Island, looking for, quote, credible ghost stories, end quote. Hasn't the earthquake-hit city suffered enough? Travel tip number 2. America's top city for UFO sightings. Apparently, it's Phoenix, Arizona, with a whopping 323 sightings in the last decade. Runners-up are New York City and Nevada, which seems like a bit of a cheat. That's a whole state. Travel tip number 3. The Alaska Triangle. Inside the mystery of the Alaska Triangle, where travelers keep disappearing with, quote, the highest recorded number of paranormal incidents in the world, end quote. But we ask, why are proponents of such zones always geometrically challenged? Why always a triangle? Can't we get a horrifying hexagon or a dangerous dodecahedron? Or I would even propose an irascible icosahedron. BBC replenishes 1970s werewolf story. The Hexam heads, 2 Celtic stone heads found in a garden near Hadrian's Wall, are apparently cursed and will change you into a werewolf. Or they look like werewolves, or something like that. The BBC has lost the audio or half the story, but they somehow managed to make it interesting. More on a real investigation of the Hexam heads can be found at, quote, tested and contested, end quote, from the Urban Prehistorian. Silliest newsreader story update. Tucker Carlson filmmaker not impressed with criticism. Former Fox News employee Tucker Carlson revealed he'd been attacked by a demon to a Christian documentary filmmaker who was not pleased with the critics. Quote, they do believe it, unless they literally don't think they've ever loved anyone or ever will. Those people are liars. They do believe in the spiritual. They believe in things unseen. There's never been a human who doesn't believe in things unseen. It's ridiculous. End quote. Couldn't put it any better. Yeah, it is ridiculous. Well, that's all the news for now. So, did some of you happen to notice there was something a bit odd about one of the sections? My husband Greg did not. But one section was actually not read by me. It was read by a voice cloner. Do you know which section it was? I actually tried several voice cloners, and all but one were terrible. And most say they're free. Well, they're free when you record your voice. But if you want that clone voice to read something, you have to pay. Luckily, they let you try for $1. And 11labs.io was the clear winner. Now, which section did the AI read? It was the going goop section. And I wonder how many of you will be rewinding to listen again. Or maybe you caught it the first time. Anyhow, here is me reading that section. The real me this time. Going, goop? Signs of trouble in Gwyneth Paltrow's empire that include layoffs, stores closing due to lack of interest, employees complaining of low salaries, poor leadership, and favoritism among the higher ranks. And the pandemic didn't help. Is the fantasy finished? I sure hope so. So what did you think? I'm thinking that my job is safe for now, but I'm worried for the future. Until next time, this is Adrienne Hill from a cold and snowy Calgary, Canada.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance. Look, I've just seen a fascinating talk on statistics. Now, come on, come back. Don't flick over the ad or go do Spotify or something right now. On the Skeptic Zone, I've got with me, please tell me who you are and what university. Did I hear Edinburgh University?
So, Glasgow University I'm at now, yes.
Sorry, oh my God,
yeah.
That's a terrible thing to say.
No, it's all right. I did my PhD at Edinburgh, so, I still think of Scotland as my academic home. So,
So I know the soccer teams hate each other.
Yeah.
Glasgow and Edinburgh universities hate each other.
I don't think there's that much animosity. Maybe around the people. I mean, both say our city's better, but I enjoyed living in both. So I should also introduce myself. Eh?
I'm sorry. We're getting into the chatting bit first.
It's fine. So I'm Dr Liam Brierley. I'm a statistician, a biological researcher, and a science communicator. And I've been based in Glasgow for about 6 months. But before that, I was based in Liverpool. And even though as a kind of day-to-day, I'm I suppose standard career academic. So I run my own research group in viral evolution and ecology. But I also kind of, I guess, moonlight doing science comedy and science outreach in interactive, more fun sort of ways.
What are you doing in Australia?
It's a good question, yeah. So I'm here for a couple of conferences.
We've got plenty of local go. We don't need you coming along mucking it all up. What are you here?
I'm here for a couple of conferences and academic visits. And yeah, it's been fantastic meeting people from the University of Melbourne, University of Sydney, doing the Options Conference in Brisbane about influenza, and I'm here for a conference next week as well.
Look, I find any academic life fascinating because I've never been able to. I never went beyond year 11 at school. I wasn't very good.
Really?
No, not very good. And physics for a start. For me, just extremely hard maths. It really is. Even though it's the science of everyday living, it's really strange. And quadratic equations killed me. Valency levels in chemistry killed me. I couldn't understand all that stuff. What, as a scientist, enrages you, but you have to pull it back a bit because you're also a science communicator, about popular culture and the press with stats? What's the most common? It just makes you throw your bacon sandwich down in the morning. What is it?
It's probably just something as simple as averages. Honestly, like it's just that the baseline is not there. The grounding is not there for people to understand. So I mean, I was quoting a reasonably well known story in the UK before. I don't know if you know this, but we had our education minister at one point say that basically all schools, their performance should be above average. And just something so fundamental as that, you think something's failed in the pipeline somewhere, because averages are probably the first thing you learn in statistics.
So what do you think he really meant?
I would love to know, but I mean, without going into too much detail about our governments, I don't know if we really understand what many of them have meant over the last 20-odd years. You know?
And on another topic altogether, with the recent return of Donald Trump to the White House in the US, how do you feel that's going to affect generally critical thinking around the world? And, because people should be doing that anyway.
Right.
And he does say a lot of things where he'll blow through something, and there could be a lot of true things in there, but they'll pick up on the one thing that's not true, or he'll amplify it. How can critical thinkers work on this?
It's concerning, isn't it? And I like everybody else, I don't really know what's going to happen, but I do have some deep concerns about where rationality is going to go, not just in the US, but I guess in the wider Western world, because you and I both know we've seen a trend toward anti-intellectualism for the past however many years. We had the famous quote back in the UK, Britain's had enough of experts. Well,
yes, look, and as you said, we were getting that before the pandemic, and was it because the pandemic wasn't as bad as everyone predicted, or because everybody thinks that there's something wrong with the vaccinations? What do you think is the thing that people got hating on experts for?
I think it's the fact that the pandemic affects everyone, and we have this kind of weird mentality where, I think this way as somebody who studied zoology before, our brains are not built for the modern day. There would be a point in our evolutionary history where to survive, we would have to look at everything happening around us and make decisions based on that. So to make decisions based on something very abstracted that we haven't seen firsthand, people tend to gravitate towards their own anecdotal experience. And there were so many people during the pandemic who said, well, I don't know anybody who's got it, so therefore it can't be dangerous, it can't be real. And I don't know how we solve that, because it's such an innate biological thing. We're not built to hold all these numbers, so we've got to find strategies and ways around it, for sure.
We have a lot of younger people listen to our podcast, and of course, if you want to get into stats, or you'd like the kids to get into stats, what's a good way to start that won't turn your head away, like I found out with valency levels in chemistry and quadratics in maths? What's a way that won't put you off?
Yeah, so there's some really amazing YouTube content out there. So Hannah Fry is a good person to look up. So she does some amazing stats communication. She's quite funny as well. There's also a show called Number File, which dives into not just stats but maths as well, but they explain things in really fantastic ways because they come up with really big questions. So they're kind of the two main science outreach places that I head to.
Wow, okay. Yeah. And what's the first thing as a layman that you should be suspicious of when you're getting some statistics thrown at you or some figures? What's something we should remember?
Yeah. Think about where it's come from. So what's the source? What does this number actually mean? How has it been generated? Did it come from a proper published scientific study? And if it did, how many people was the study on? Because a study of 10 people is not going to be as strong in evidence as a study of 10,000. And I always say, scientific papers are written a certain way. There's a bit of jargon there. There's almost a kind of a cultural barrier to understanding them. If you want to know something about a scientific piece of research, genuinely just email the people that wrote it. They will be more than happy to talk about it in most cases.
Oh, okay. I would never think to do that because I think they're too busy.
No. I mean, people love it when people read their research, and especially if you're a member of the public, it shows that their research is having impact if you want to understand it better.
Normally, have you got one favourite paranormal that you love to debunk?
Not especially. I mean, that's something that I don't really get into too much.
You're too busy looking at tables.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't come across my radar too much. So there is one talk that I saw a while back about statistics around, and this is a speaker as well, I should say, who's done skeptics branches up and down the UK. Statistics around Loch Ness monster sightings. And it turns out there's some really interesting statistical patterns when you look at
time of day, amount of alcohol consumed.
Genuinely, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that was a factor in it as well. And like different shapes that people report, and whether there's an association with different shapes, different times of day. What are the scenarios?
Wow,
really fascinating insight into psychology.
Oh, look, thank you for being here at Skeptics in the Pub tonight. What have you got on the rest of your Whistle Stop Australia tour?
Oh well, this is really the victory lap for me. So right, I've got one more week before I head home. So this is kind of, yeah.
Is there anything you want to do in Australia you haven't done yet?
I mean, more nature. Absolutely love nature and love tech stuff. So most of the stuff I've been doing is going to wildlife parks, like seeing. You have a ton of really interesting national, like.
Look at those wacky marsupials.
Yeah, exactly, and they're so weird. And coming from a zoology background, when I learned about these so long ago, I've never seen them in person. So
look, even I've never seen a platypus. I think I've seen it swimming underwater in a zoo, but I don't think I've seen one really up close. Yeah,
that's wild. Because the person I'm travelling with managed to see one in the wild.
Wow. Okay.
In Tasmania.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because was it during the day? Because they're mainly.
Yeah, I think so.
That's really rare because they don't like people much.
Right. Yeah.
Can you blame them?
No.
Have you met people? Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? They're the scariest of all.
Well, could you leave us with your your favourite statistical fact you'd like to make a statement for us with?
So every year the Royal Statistical Society does run a Statistic of the Year competition, and sometimes they made it Statistic of the Decade. One of the surprising winners of this that I quote a lot as like one of my favourite statistical facts is, it was won one year by Kim Kardashian. Can you believe?
She's now a lawyer.
Yeah, well, she clearly knows her numbers, because she won it for comparing the number of deaths annually in the USA from jihadist immigrants to the number of deaths from lawnmowers. And the number of deaths from lawnmowers was order of magnitude larger. So she was kind of pointing out, in all this rhetoric we have about anti-immigration, actually there are things far more dangerous, and people are worried about terrorist attacks, which is a valid worry, but as an individual you are far more likely to be killed by an instrument in your own backyard.
Thank you, Liam. Enjoy your rest of your time in Australia. I hope you see 2 platypuses so you can lord it over your friend.
Hey, thank you so much.
Once again to go back to the digital archives, available to us all no matter where we are, at Trove and other resources around the world. We can learn about our published history, research, and dive into what lessons there are for us. And this week I thought we'd look at something which is from almost 30 years ago, and this was the famous Alien Autopsy footage. And of course, no spoilers here. It was a faked film, but it did create a lot of hubbub at the time. Sort of like the recent hearings in front of Congress in the United States. Yet another one. Oh dear. I guess next year there'll be another one, followed by another one, followed by no evidence whatsoever, followed by another one. Oh well, gives them something to do with American taxpayers' dollars, I guess. Anyway, getting back to the Alien Autopsy, a quick look over at Wiki. Alien Autopsy, fact or fiction, is a 1995 pseudo-documentary containing grainy black and white footage of a hoaxed alien autopsy. In 1995, film purporting to show an alien autopsy conducted shortly after the Roswell incident The footage aired on television networks around the world. And indeed, in my collection I have that documentary. Fox Television broadcast the purported autopsy hosted by Jonathan Frakes on the 28th of August 1995 under the title Alien Autopsy, Fact or Fiction, and rebroadcast it twice, each time to higher ratings. The footage was also broadcast on UK's Channel 4 and repackaged for the home video market. And that's the one of the versions I have, I think. The program was an overnight sensation, with Time magazine declaring that the film had sparked a debate with an intensity not lavished on any home video since the Zapruder film. That was the JFK assassination film, of course. The program was thoroughly debunked. The autopsy footage was filmed on an inexpensive set constructed in a London living room. Its alien bodies were hollow plaster casts filled with offal, sheep brains, and raspberry jam. Multiple participants in Alien Autopsy stated that misleading editing had removed their opinions and that the footage was a hoax. And this brings us to an article I discovered in the Canberra Times dated July the 29th, 1995, by Martin Walker. Is truth stranger than the X-Files? Martin Walker sees what may be the first hard evidence of extraterrestrial beings. The world will see it later. And this was originally published in The Guardian. Now, imagine the feeling at the time. We know from the vantage point of history that it was all a fake. But let's see what Martin Walker was writing at the time. Imagine a pubescent but pregnant girl, humanoid but distinctly alien, with a bald and giant head and lizard eyes. She could come from the garish cover of any science fiction magazine. Under the scalpel her flesh gives and bleeds. The joints flex, the limbs bend, and the great wound on the thighs suggests muscle and ligament. The scalpel cuts the flesh away to reveal a vast skull of unusual thick bone. The surgeon wielding this saw pauses to rest in his work. When the contents of the skull are removed, they are flesh-like, but unlike a human brain with its grooves and folds. If brain this is, it looks like a chunk of liver on this grainy, soundless black and white film said to have been shot in 1947. If these large elliptical lizard slits are eyes, they are covered with a black film, which is then carefully removed by the surgeons, revealing white orbs. The scalpel goes down into the trunk, to the swollen belly, which suggests that this small being might have been pregnant. There are female genitalia, but no navel and no hair. Once the body cavity is exposed, there are no familiar coils of intestine. The body organs are again flesh-like, soft, yet distinctly odd. There are 6 digits at the end of each long, slim arm, 6 toes on each foot. This is eerily familiar from the vision of sci-fi illustrators, and also from medical books on anatomy, as if this being, under the surgeon's knife, were a composite of 4 or 5 different human pathologies. There are no prosthetics. This does not look like some creation of the Hollywood special effects labs. This seems convincingly to be the autopsy of some kind of being. There are 2 films. The first lasts about 18 minutes and takes place in some kind of operating theatre with surgeons in masks and gowns. The film is shot from inside a tent in the half-light of emergency lanterns. The being is largely covered by a sheet. The male and female medical attendants flex the limbs and conduct what seems to be a preliminary examination. A man in civilian clothes is present and seems to be in charge. This film lasts about 3 minutes, and there is no sound on either film clip. If this is a hoax, it is a most elaborate and convincing and believable one, said Congressman Stephen Schiff of New Mexico, as he sat and watched the films last month in his Washington office, with his staff and other government officials around him. We were shown the clips and sworn to secrecy, till now by the British documentary filmmaker John Purdy of Union Pictures. On August 28, these two brief clips of film, which purport to record the US Air Force autopsies of two crashed alien beings, will be screened simultaneously as part of Purdy's Roswell documentary in Britain, United States, Japan and Europe. This film is the first hard evidence to emerge from the most celebrated and well-documented unidentified flying object event of all time, the mysterious crash of a strange aerial craft near Roswell Air Force Base in New Mexico at 11:30 p.m. on July 4th, 1947. The possibility that Earth has been visited by aliens and their bodies autopsied on film is clambering out of the bizarre underworld of the cults and into the realm of the rational and verifiable world. Prodded by his New Mexico constituents and his own curiosity, Congressman Schiff began his own probing of the Roswell mystery 3 years ago. His first success was to force the US Air Force to drop the cover story it had maintained on Roswell since 1947, that the crash was of an experimental high-altitude weather balloon and strange metal was ordinary tin foil. Last year, in an official report, the US Air Force told Congressman Schiff about Operation Mogul, an experimental high-altitude balloon designed to detect radiation and monitor an eventual first test of a Soviet atom bomb. Dissatisfied with what he calls the most unaccountable stonewalling I have ever encountered, Congressman Schiff and other legislators have succeeded in ordering the Government Accounting Office, the watchdog of the federal government, to mount its own new inquiry. That report was to be delivered to Congressman Schiff yesterday and will be published next week. The first people to arrive on the Roswell site on July 5th, 1947, were a team of archaeologists led by Dr. W. Curry Holden of Texas Tech University. They reported to the local sheriff that they had seen, quote, a crashed airplane without wings and with a fat fuselage, end quote. They reported also seeing 3 bodies, 2 outside the craft and 1 still inside, visible through a gash in the fuselage. Then came 2 campers, James Ragsdale and Trudy Trulove, who reported that the bodies were, quote, 4 or 5 foot long at the most, end quote. Ragsdale was more interested in the unusual metal at the crash site. It looked like tinfoil, but was much stronger. You could take that stuff and wad it up, and it would straighten itself out. Within minutes, the sound of a siren signaled the arrival of military police jeeps from the Roswell Army Air Force Base. 55 kilometers away, home of the 109th Bomb Group, then the world's only atomic strike force. The site was sealed, the civilians cleared off, and the high-ranking civilian and military officials began to fly into the site. Intriguing snippets of evidence have kept the Roswell UFO story running as a local issue. First, there is the local undertaker, Glenn Dennis, who was asked by the base if he could provide child-sized coffins. Then there was the local fireman, Dan Dwyer, whose crew was called out to the crash site, collected some of the mysterious metal debris, and told his family of seeing 2 body bags and 1 still alive being, quote, about the size of a 10-year-old child, end quote. Then there is Sheriff George Wilcox, who told his family he and they had been threatened with death if they ever talked about the Roswell crash. The testimony of these witnesses and a handful of former military personnel has been for 2 decades the tantalizing sum of the flimsy array of hearsay evidence and vague memories that has made up the Roswell case. The film was obtained by another British filmmaker, Ray Santilli, of Merlin Productions, who found a retired US cameraman who decided finally to make public the films he had taken as a USAF film technician at Roswell and the Autopsy Center of Fort Worth. On-film coding confirms that this is film stock from either 1947 or 1967, Congressman Schiff is arranging for US government labs to study the film further, but so far its authenticity has not been questioned. British and US pathologists who have seen the film say it appears to be a real autopsy, probably performed by surgeons rather than expert pathologists, and using the medical technology of the late 1940s. If it happened, if there is even one credible piece of evidence that the Earth has been visited by aliens, it changes everything, said Richard D'Amato, National Secretary Aide to Senator Robert Byrd. It only had to happen once. So there we go. An interesting report made before the whole thing was exposed as a fake. What do you think? Do you think that report was even-handed at the time? Could it have been more skeptical? Or was it simply reporting what the reporter was gathering about the story? And after yet another 30 years, and still more UFO reports coming out every year, and nothing ever coming of them, maybe the media should be just a little bit more skeptical. But does skepticism sell newspapers? No. What sells newspapers? Aliens are here. And now apparently they're hiding underwater off the coast of California or Mexico. Did I hear that correctly? There's some sort of base near an island or something like that. Well, I wonder what it'll be next year or next week. Maybe they're hiding under, well, let's have a guess and see if it comes true. Maybe they're going to go back to the Bermuda Triangle. Or maybe they're under the Antarctic. Actually, no, they can't be, because the Antarctic is an ice wall that surrounds the globe, the flat Earth, or something like that. Yes, alien autopsies. What a blast from the past. What a time that was. And I remember all the hoopla, all the hype 30 years ago when that movie came out. But you too can look at hype and UFOs and bizarre claims going back decades and decades if you visit Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, because when you go there, you never know what strange aliens you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Thank you to the sponsors and people just like yourselves who contribute with PayPal or Patreon. And thank you very much to my colleagues at the Australian Skeptics for awarding me a Life Achievement Award. Very honoured to be in the same company as Barry Williams and James Randi. What a shock. It was quite a surprise. I was floored last night at the dinner. So that's something to treasure. And of course, thank you to all the people who helped make the Skeptic Zone possible, which contributed to that award, I think. And I think especially of my wonderful reporters dotted all around the world, from the fair city of Melbourne and sometimes Anglesey to way up there in Canada to parts of Australia like Newcastle. Thank you all. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
But never mind.
Yeah, I'm not very bright, so I don't want to.
You heard that here, folks. Ben Radford admits he's not very bright. But he is backstage. We're in the green room. The convention is, I think it's just about to kick off. But we're hunkered down here in the green room. I'm with Lara Benham. Hello, Lara.
Good morning, Richard.
Good afternoon. Whatever it is. Is it still morning? I don't know. With these conventions, it's so busy. And Ben Radford. Hi, Ben.
Hello, hello.
So we're going to play the dice game. This is where I have a D10, 10-sided die, and you have to use your psychic powers. He's trying. Going to roll it 4 times. Is that a chupacabra?
I'm working on it. I'm mustering the psychic energy.
So if I roll this 4 times, D10,
Yes.
what numbers do you think will come up?
4 times, you're going to get a 7,
7,
a 7,
7,
3,
3,
8,
8.
6.
That's 5.
No, it's 6.
He's predicting the bonus ball already.
Yes, I'm already predicting
But
the
7, 7, 3, and 8, that's 4 numbers. Did I say 5? Oh, we'll do 5. What the hell? And what?
6.
6. Lara.
Thank you.
5,
5,
2,
2,
0. Or 0 or 10?
10,
Okay. 4,
4,
4.
4. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, I didn't know that was an option.
There we go. Here we come.
It's not.
First roll. 7.
Oh my gosh.
One-
We should have done that mustering thing that
One
he
for
did.
Ben Radford.
right.
Second roll. 8. Burp, burp.
But to be fair, I had 7, which is close to
And you
8.
do have an 8 lower down.
Okay. I mixed them up.
Roll 3. 3. Oh, me.
And Ben.
And Ben. Wow. Roll 4. 10. Oh.
Oh.
I did say 0.
And roll 5. 2. Yeah. So, Ben, you got it twice.
To be fair, I don't want to say I cheated, but I did prepare. You may have heard a grunting sound.
Yeah.
Yes.
You may have wondered if I was okay. I was okay. I was mustering the chi, the energy, to do that. So I'm pleased to have gotten a somewhat unremarkable 2 out of 5.
So do you think that if you had done that mustering for longer or harder, you would have got more successful, potentially 4 or 5 out of 5?
You know, that's a fair question. I have not tested it. When in the privacy of my hotel room later on, I may do some grunting like that to sort of see what I can do with it. But as of now, I don't know.
All right. Well, I'll award you the dice. There we are.
Thank you.